Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. More than 6,000 Vermonters live in licensed long-term facilities, places like nursing homes, residential care homes, or assisted living residences. On top of that, there are more than 5,000 Vermonters who receive long-term care services in community settings. These Vermonters share common concerns when it comes to their care. They want to be treated with dignity and to receive quality care that reflects their individual needs. But when there are problems, and there are, those receiving long-term care services need someone to turn to. In Vermont, they turn to Jackie Majoros. Jackie is the state long-term care ombudsman. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Just what is it that an ombudsman does?
Well, I know it's a hard word to say, but basically we're advocates for people who are getting long-term care services in facilities and in the community.
And so how is this this program set up?
Well, our program is structured. We have 6 paid staff. We have myself, the state long-term care ombudsman, 5 regional ombudsmen, one of whom is a part-time volunteer coordinator, and they're located in offices around the state. Mm-hmm. And then we have about 13 volunteers.
And so why are these people needed?
Well, in the 1970s, there was a lot of concern about conditions in nursing homes. And the federal government was putting a lot of money into nursing homes through the Medicare and Medicaid program. And I think they wanted to make sure that people were getting quality care and having a good quality of life. And the government figured out that the best way to do that is to have some way for those residents to have access to someone who could address their concerns and basically be a voice for them. So that's sort of the history of the Ombudsman program and why it is in existence today.
Mm-hmm. And so can you tell me a little bit about some of the reasons why we need ombudsmen?
Well, I think it's very hard for people in nursing homes to express concerns about any problems that they see or that they might be experiencing. They're there all the time. They're dependent very much on the staff providing very basic services. And I think there's some reticence about expressing any concern or problem that they have.
Can you give us some sort of snapshot in Vermont as far as how many investigations there were?
Last year we investigated about 580 complaints. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we provided over 1,000 consultations. So those are situations where we gave some advice or information, but we actually didn't have to go out and investigate.
Mm-hmm. And you also visit facilities as well.
We do visit facilities. We really have to maintain a regular presence in facilities because that's the best way to get to know the residents. So last year I think we made over 1,000 facility visits, and the more frequently we're in the facilities, the better the residents get to know us and the more willing they are to come forward and express concerns.
Maybe you could give me some examples from your annual report on some of the complaints that you did get.
Sure. One thing comes to mind. We were contacted by a family member on behalf of her mother because the arm pads on her wheelchair weren't fitting properly and they weren't made out of a material that was really working for her. Mm-hmm. And in fact, her arms were bleeding because the pads on the chair weren't proper. So she had asked, the family member had asked several times for the facility to sort of fix that, order a new chair, get new pads, and nothing happened. So they contacted us and we were able to work with the facility. We got new pads for the armchair and the situation was resolved.
Mm-hmm. And some things are a lot simpler too than that.
Yeah, there can be things that are quite simple. For instance, when I first started doing this job, there was a resident who wanted a pencil so she could do crossword puzzles, and she was just unable to get that for a couple of days, and the volunteer got it for her within like 10 or 15 minutes.
And so are you welcome in the facilities?
Generally, we are. I think the facilities recognize that we share the same goal. We both want the residents to have good quality care and good quality of life. So they understand that, we have the same end in mind. We may have different roles, but basically we want the best for the residents.
And so what are your primary duties?
Our primary duty is a complaint investigation. Mm-hmm. We will respond to problems or concerns that residents have, and we will try to resolve them to their satisfaction. That's really what we do most of the time. In addition to that, we do provide a lot of sort of education to residents and to facilities. We educate them both about residents' rights, and we educate them both about what other long-term care options might be available to people. The state of Vermont has tried very, very hard to give people a choice about where they get long-term care services. People can now get services in the community. And we try to let residents know that, and we try to explain to facilities what's available to people in the community and help people who want to leave the nursing home or the residential care home and go back to the community. Try to explain how that can happen.
Mm-hmm. And so talk a little bit too about working in the community, because it's just not going to facilities.
Yeah, I mean, in Vermont, there are about 5,000 people who are getting long-term care services in their homes through the state's Choices for Care Medicaid waiver. Mm-hmm. And we provide the same kind of service to them that we do to people in nursing homes. It's a little different because we have to do it sort of one person at a time. When you go into a facility, there may be 50 or 100 people that you can sort of work with or see. But it's really basically the same kind of issues. We're working on issues about quality of care and quality of life. What we see now is that people have concerns about access to services. They may qualify for the long-term care service, and they may have a service plan that says they get this many hours of care, but sometimes their aide or homemaker doesn't show up, they cancel, they don't come when it's convenient for the individual. We recently had a situation where the aide wasn't able to come in the evening to help someone actually get back into bed, and they stayed in their wheelchair all night long.
And so these folks are very much at the mercy at times
very
of
much,
people
very
or
much so.
their caretakers.
Very much so. So that's why when the state moved for sort of shifting the balance from facility care to home care, there were a lot of advocates and a lot of legislators who say we really still need an ombudsman for these people in the community, because they're facing very similar problems, but just in a very different setting.
Mm-hmm. And so because you have six paid staff people, I would imagine who picks up a lot of the work. I mean, this is a lot of visits, a lot of people to see.
It is, and in fact, it is the regional ombudsman. Mm-hmm. They're doing a lot of the work, and our volunteers. I mean, without our volunteers, we would not be able to maintain the kind of presence that we maintain in facilities. They are really our eyes and ears in facilities around the state.
And so, how many volunteers do you think you have?
We have about 13 now.
Really?
Yeah.
And so, how does that work? I mean, obviously there must be some training.
Yes. Yeah, they are trained. They have about 20 hours of classroom training, and that includes some self-study. In addition, they have field training. So they follow one of their regional ombudsman, who's going to be ultimately their supervisor. Mm-hmm. And they learn how to do complaint investigation. They learn what is important, to figuring out how you resolve complaints in a facility.
Mm-hmm. I know, and we're seeing a picture here of one of the volunteers, Russ Conkin, and Russ is from Plymouth, Vermont, and he's visiting here with a resident of the Gill Nursing Home in Ludlow, and Russ is here with us now.
Hi,
great, thanks so much for joining us. How long have you been a volunteer, and why did you decide to be a volunteer?
I've been a volunteer a little over 7 years, mm-hmm. and for me, it's a way of giving back to a generation, I think, that was very important to me. Spending some time with these people, I think it's been helpful.
And so tell me about some of the responses that you get when you visit.
Well, very often their eyes brighten up. Many of the residents know me by my first name, mm-hmm. and say, "Come on in, Russ, sit down." They want to talk. Many of them don't have family, they don't have friends even that come and visit them. So we visit regularly, once a week we try to, and they just love to talk about themselves, about what they do, and eventually some things we can help them with.
And also too, it must be important to have you mentioned the volunteers being sort of the eyes in the community, because you get to know these folks, and then you can kind of tell if there's something that's bothering them, if there's something that maybe is wrong with them, and you're there to see that. Correct.
After we get to know them, they consider us a friend, and they will open up. Very often, they're very small things that we might help them with, mm-hmm. But they're willing to talk with us and tell us about them.
And so tell me a little bit about some of the things that you do for these folks?
A lot of times they're very simple and small things. One example is I walked in and a resident was sitting in their chair and their TV was off. And I asked them why, and they said, well, there were no batteries in their TV changer. And they couldn't get up to get batteries. They might have been afraid to ask. Very simply, I went to the head nurse, got their permission to talk with somebody, and they got maintenance in, and within 15 minutes they were able to watch TV.
And so, is it that some folks feel like, well, I don't want to, put these people out. They're busy working in the facility, and batteries for a remote are kind of, not really a big deal. When in fact they are.
Correct. And sometimes it's a matter of empowering the resident too. Another real quick example is a lady said that they were taking her tray away when she wasn't finished because she was a slow eater. And I said, have you asked them to leave the tray? She said, no, I really haven't. And I said, well, the next time you have a meal, ask them to leave the tray because you're a slow eater and that they could take it when they're finished. When I checked with her the next week, she said, yes, I did that, and they left the tray and let me finish my meal. So it's a very simple thing.
And so, do you feel that you've had an impact on the quality of the care and the quality of life that these folks are receiving?
I think so. Even though these are small items, watching TV for some of these residents is really what they do. Being able to finish their meals, I mean, to me, that's a quality issue for somebody that's in a long-term care facility.
And so you underwent, obviously, the training. What was that like?
It was very interesting and very good training. We had, I don't know how many sessions. It took 6 months, or actually the training in the classroom was maybe 2 or 3 months. But then I went with a regional ombudsman and visited many different homes, interacted with the residents, and it really was an eye-opener and was very interesting.
And would you recommend this for somebody else? What should somebody expect from this experience if they're thinking about volunteering?
Well, I think it's very heartwarming to spend some time with these people. So many of these people, like I said, don't have family or friends. And to be able to spend some time and see their faces light up when you walk in, and to know that you probably made a small difference, but a difference when you walk out of the facility, is really, to me, very heartwarming.
And you find that it's really about forming a relationship, because at first perhaps they wouldn't open up to you until they got to know you a little bit better?
Sure. They and again, don't know what ombudsman is. It takes me 1 or 2 visits to try to explain what we do. And we do hand out brochures, and I give them a phone number. And after a few visits and they get to know me and we talk about their lives and we talk about just general things, I'm a friend. And they look for me. They say, please come and stop and see me the next time you're in.
Right, and then you can say, usually when I come this time of day, you're watching TV. Why aren't you watching TV? Or why aren't you doing your crosswords?
Absolutely.
Or why are you perhaps still in your bedclothes?
Exactly.
And so if someone is interested in the training that you provide to your volunteers, what should they do?
They can contact us at Vermont Legal Aid, and I should say that we are a special project of Vermont Legal Aid, and that is very unique in terms of the ombudsman world, because we're in an organization that's not the state, and so we can really be an independent voice. So they can call that toll-free number, which is the Vermont Legal Aid number. They will be referred to our volunteer coordinator. She will talk with them about the job, answer questions that they have, send an application, and then, if it's a match, then we'll move forward and they'll be participating in the training.
And so, as the years go by, have you noticed an increase in the number of folks that have either complaints or concerns, or an increase in things that you've been involved with?
Well, what we've noticed is that the more staff and the more volunteers we have, basically the more complaints we receive. And it really is a function of the fact that people get to know the ombudsman, get to know the volunteer, and then they start talking about the things that are bothering them or issues that they have. When our staffing has been reduced because of lack of funding, we'll notice the complaints go down a little bit. But overall we've always gotten the same kinds of complaints. A lot of them deal with issues about privacy and issues about care.
And so going forward now, obviously we hear a lot about our aging population, and more people are going to be needing these kinds of services. So you're just going to be getting busier.
We are, and we really, it's difficult because we do rely sort of on state and federal money to fund our program, and so we would like to have more staff, but we would really like to have more volunteers.
All right, and once again, that number people can call?
It's 1-800-889-2047.
There it is again.
Yes, I'm surprised I remembered it.
That's good for you.
If people want to email, they can email me.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you both for coming today.
Well,
thank you for having us.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.